So I was just about to get into the next little thing I was doing, and I opened one of my old original notebooks from back right after 2019 ended my catalyst moment, and this was one of the first pages, or one of the first experiences to this degree I had had early in 2020. So kind of set a little context of the morning that I ended up, or the day I ended up writing this. I was walking by my phone, or I was walking to the outside, to the backyard, and my phone was on the couch. And as I walked by, it turned on and started playing a video. Anyways, the video is not important. It led me to this. And this particular explanation was from a funds manager, and he was just talking about 5G, 4G, and the different, or 5G, 3G. And at that time, there was quite a bit of, hoopla about the 3G and 5G. So myself not knowing much about it at all, other than the fact that everybody was worried about 5G and, you know, complaining and stuff. And so, but I also was making the connection between, everybody talking about 5D Earth or fifth dimension and third dimension, all this stuff. So at this particular point, I had gone all in regards to focus, using my what I would find out to be, the ADD, hyperfocus, all that stuff that we use or we use as a crutch until we learn how to order those disorders or disabilities and make them abilities. So this is a demonstration or an illustration of how I demonstrated how to do that. And this is just one of many, but anyways, it was brought, so 5G, 4G, or 3G. And also at the time, I had just gotten into beginning to understand crypto as well. And as everything is connected, there was another connection there in which the way our the way the digital economy has to work, there has to be a speed in which it can operate to keep up and remain in a practical way. So in doing so, we had to have some type of ability to for the basically the hardware to operate the software, just like the human body does, which is all from the underground to the light of day to the spiritual world. All of it is encompassed and encased in the connection between what I'm sharing with you right now. I didn't know it at the time, which is part of the main the main component to create the catalyst moments in which we become more affluent, more receptive, less resistant to change, which is why it is said that change is always happening, because change in physical existence is exactly just another word for motion. What is motion? Motion is energy. What is energy in the creation of the external 3D world? It is light. What is used in order for us to communicate the differentiation of the light in shades? Words. So in the beginning of point A, there was the word, and with that word, we created the expression of motion. Therefore, in that moment, the pendulum was activated. So now we have worlds that all in themselves are the balance of the individuals are all in balance of the whole. So while one performs an act in motion, and it's different either to either side, the only one that remains the same is in the center, the balance center of the balance whole. So anyways, that's what we spirituality, that's what the whole purpose of all of this is to have the experience, reach out, and then move ourselves towards or recalibrate our trajectory from the outer realms in which the only teacher we have of energy, of light, to communicate is through the experiences in which are all stored in the archives of our cellular memory, in which create the body. And then within those bodies communicate. So you are a universe, amongst yourself, one verse that comes out of three creators. But time is our singular measurement, so there's only one door for those three creators to be able to come out at a time. Therefore, there's a process, a three-staged process in which we have to create a wholeness or an expansion of something. So in our case, it's directly related to body first, creation of the body, the vehicle. Then once we got to the forgiveness stage, now that was in the beginning of when the mind was going to start the the realization of self, of free will, of choice, of and that began the slow ascent, feeling like a descent. However, the mind itself now created two from one, the body, and then now it's going to be able to differentiate, which is where we get the choice, where we get free will. So now we go through these thousands of years of integrating the experiences, or going through the experience, in which now teaches us about the mind, teaches us how to use the mind and how to use it with the body as an individual within the collective. So at this point, we are now at the end of that stage. That is what everybody's talking about. That's what the whole spiritual thing is about. That's what the whole catalyst is about. We're going from a superficial intelligence, which is surface level, which is duality, which is external, which is light, which is using the words. Which, when we use words, all we consciously accept is the definition, where in fact the antonym and its similes also define the wholeness of a word, what it is and what it is not. That's the only way you can know a thing. To know it is to know it in and out. Humanity itself, this has to be accepted by everybody. Humanity itself is at that stage where, when it is said in the cliche that when those who speak don't know, those who know don't speak, it doesn't mean don't share the mystery of my story, or it's the history in which the mind, the me, the mind of duality is speaking back and forth, closed to anything external until it is impacted with enough force. The theory of relativity is not a theory. It is a culmination of all the 12 laws of the universe. It's not a theory. The theory part being worded that way is to make sure that it doesn't get overlooked, or it remains as part of a subconscious, remains within the subconscious algorithm, to then eventually come back to, as we are now, going through this transition from a two-dimensional awareness in a three-dimensional world. We're going from that to a three-dimensional co-creation in a three-dimensional existence, which is now, right now. So going back to this, so initially, the difference between 5G and 3G when it comes to communication, which is the basic basic building block of physical reality in itself, existence in itself, of consciousness. It's communication, because from oneness we go to two, and that's micro is macro, macro is micro, above is below, below is above, all that stuff. It is all one, just like the pendulum. The pendulum is balanced itself, but it's also balancing in motion. So from the overview, from the oversoul, from the looking as the one who initiated the motion, initiated the act, initiated the energy to allow it to be sustainable, so that in that time the components made up within it can have its experience. So anyways, and everything connected being this way. So 5G. So we're talking about 5G. M waves, M mountains, valleys, the reversal of the W, which is waves. M mind, which is the geometry, the creator of the physical realm in the interpretation based on the dimensions, which the light comes in the two black holes of the eyes, comes in the two flanks of the ears, your angel wings, your angle wings that are needed to be arced. Find your angles and arc them, smooth out the edges, which is, which means that the energetic suppression that has been gone on, and people talk about the ancestral curse and breaking that and all this stuff. Generation X marks the spot, is the one that began the that was the starting gate, the starting clock of the transition starting to happen, going beyond the Generation X. So the Generation X didn't have to build the bridge, they had to be the bridge, which means go through the latchkey kids. The key had to go through the stuff that I we went through in the transition, which, I mean, just look at around her, like all the suppression of that pain and suffering, and the way that people always, parents and how they feel, and kids, they just feel like this repeated cycle of, letting each other down. Well, now I'm on a, all of it makes perfect sense, and it will to everybody, as long and whoever's ready to listen and to understand their role and participation in the voluntary aspects, and those who choose to do so are what people are, running around calling the chosen ones now. It's just because they choose to be, they choose to start to understand that motion is change, change is motion. It's the very same thing said in different words. Words are the things that we need to understand, we need to communicate, we need to be open, we need to be tolerant, which is tolerant of our pain. That's what it goes down to. It's not tolerant of, running around and seeking places and things to be tolerant of. It's the pain tolerance, because it's exactly energy trapped in the cellular memory, and it is demonstrated by an object trying to get through our Earth's atmosphere. And what that might feel like, well, the trapped energy that created your bodies. This is the creation. The only reason we associate the negative polarity to it, which is just energy at start, the suppression in which creates the bodies, in which creates the impact, in which creates the vibration, in which creates the energetic motion that we trap within a condensed space, is what we call body. And then traveling through time, we are able to greater and greater, or have greater concentrations, greater densities, and going from volatility into, or disorder into ordering that energy is like lightning in a bottle, within our cellular memory. But every individual this is what the own journey stuff, or going on my own journey, or speaking my truth, all this stuff is about. Okay, because you have to, nobody can do this other than support them through it, which is what I'm doing right now. And the only way we can support each other is by sharing the knowledge in which our story, in which we got there. This is not about translation and regurgitation of words of his story, because his story is memory, emotional charge to the memories of a past, to which we call a future, doesn't exist, because that future is a fantasy. And it's not necessarily a fantasy, it's just your mind doing what it does. It takes whatever it has in the now moment that it knows and has access to based on the experience that each individual has had. Okay, their actual experience, but experience of what? Feeling. Circumstances are irrelevant. Consumption is irrelevant to the focus of what is actually going on. Those consumption and circumstances are the cause, or the effects of the cause. The only experience that teaches us is our feeling. What does it teach us? What does it teach us how to do? It teaches us how to have a tolerance for pain through suffering. The suffering and the depth of the suffering only goes as deep as we are unwilling to feel the pain. They're two different things. Just like a storage, like you have a lake and you have a river. You have a bank and you have a current. Okay? The bank is the suffering where you hold and store and hoard all the energy. Okay? The current has to be, the door has to be opened, unlocked. Has to be, and that is not a thing, a decision, a choice, a motion, a recalibration that anything, no one, not a single force in the entire existence can do for another. It is your authority over your university. Okay, and this is the transition. There's only two directions to go. Okay, descending, spinning around, and drilling. It's all going on externally, and all the things that we are getting hostile over is exactly this is exactly to get us to point to doing exactly what I'm saying right now. And it has to come to a place where the history, the faith, trust, love, respect, all that stuff in an external anything, the worship, the idol, the idolization, and that's not bad either. It was actually a necessary peg in order for us to elevate and climb to where we're going or transitioning to right now. So nothing about it is wrong. Nothing about it is right. It just is. And it's the way it must be done because at the fundamental foundation of everything is communication, but it's a breathing in and out. Your body shows you the image of creation, body in and out. The black holes are the iris of the eyes. You have two of them. It sucks in all the light from 3D, puts it into the darkness, and then gets translated by the senses of fifth dimension. When we are willing to go to the fourth dimension, which is the cube, the stillness, the meeting ground, the eighth octave, where we meet with our heart of darkness, which is the feminine. Okay, so she's the one that's has all the energy. She's the one that gets to create the impact until we turn around. And when I say we, I'm talking about the masculine perspective, the mind, until the mind has opened. So all of this stuff everybody's talking about and using words and saying, "Oh, I have this or that," and using the identifiers to create identity out of themselves. They're identifiers, not an identity. Identifiers, pattern recognition, and then discernment. When we identify with the identifiers, we become the unaware judge. And the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was not to convince you he didn't exist. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the devil that he wasn't him. It's just mind. These are all different ways just to differentiate the different shades of black and of gray between the black and white. And then from there, we are able to open the mind to true north, go south inside, which is north outside, okay, and create the compass rose, which we ground within the frequency in which we are aware, communicating with our intuition and expressing from the intuition. The mind still has a magnificent role and far beyond what anybody can fathom right now. It's a magnificent manifestation. So it's not about being wrong or right. That is a differentiation to create the concentration of the energy in which, at this point, is all being illustrated or demonstrated in a way through the illustration of the words that then lay the bricks, the yellow brick road, to which the path we end up experiencing. And we either become a participatory member of that by choosing to be a chosen one, to feel our feelings, know, own them, own and cultivate the soul soil that is within our own skin, the underworld. And fear itself is the forgiveness is the key that will unlock the stuff. And the black holes of the eyes too. So crying, nothing escapes a black hole's gravity, right? Except for gravity. So how do we escape? How do we allow that gravity, the emotional weight, the density within the cells to escape our bodies? Feeling them, and then it comes out crying. Why do you think the representation of our earth, our womb, has 90 whatever it is percent of salt water? Why do you think exercising is so good for us? Like these things moving the energy so that it's not stuck in stalemate in the cells imprisoned within our own body. And the body heals, which means it just regenerates back to its natural state when the energy itself is not overwhelming it. There's too much storage. It's at capacity or over, and we just keep packing some more suppression in there with by saying that we don't, you know, by setting boundaries, by doing these, and it's okay to set boundaries. That's not the issue. It's like with everything. It's with all of these words. It's not producing the enlightenment it's supposed to by change. And that's when people have these, what they call, and here's another one, near-death experiences. I'm sorry, I've done it. So it's not near death, it is death. And there is a life review. And it is different in different ways as far as the interpretation based upon the gravity in which was current, the weight of the gravity which was current get at the time the trauma happened, and then what direction the individual is going to choose to go in. Are they going to do this? Are they going to be in a position where they're going to go from judgment, suppression, and they're going to go from superficial intelligence to emotional intelligence, which is the intelligence of how to manipulate energy consciously? And if you're doing it consciously, and if you're doing it, there is no evil in a conscious expression of manipulating energy, because it's not relevant. It's not relevant to go out. What it is, you know, basically what we have with the stories of the ascended masters during their life. Buddha left, or not Buddha. Buddha's the title, just like Christ is. Like, yes, there was an existence of them because it has to happen. Dream, think, do. We have an idea, we put it in motion and have a script for it, and then we put it into play, a blueprint, and then we put it into play and act it out. The illustration becomes the demonstration. And what is a demon? Demon is a master of a thing. A master of a thing. A king, a true king, is one that has a relationship and communication and love, true love with their queen, which is their feminine. So on the external aspect, you can't be a man the way that we say it right now. Like I'm a grown ass man. That is the most immature, non-man thing to say, and expression and demonstration you can illustrate or demonstrate, because that just proves how scared a person is from being made to, or from feeling unsafe, from feeling insecure, from feeling that fear of abandonment, from feeling not loved, from feeling the negativity, or even on the way to a place of the direction towards indifference, which why is, the only environment in which evil can thrive, is when good men do nothing, men mind do nothing and just continue to, or nothing about the feeling, don't open, even on occasion, to look out the window or open the door to the hatch to allow the feelings to come in. This is where we get the dark empaths. that this is why the empathy is here, and there's not as many of us that came through, because that path is going into becoming, you while a sociopathic person can go to a place where they, are trying to recreate the singular moment in which they felt a stimulation, some type of compassion, some type of energetic stimulus, because the mind is completely taken over, and in any way, shape, or form, there is energy that is stored, which is supposed to be in motion. There's two different languages always going on. Ego goes, which is in the motion and decides. The ego, the egod, the decider of the gatekeeper, the one at the door that decides with free will whether or not the energy is going to be put out, or what's going to be done with the energy. Emotion is the storage, the bank, which that is the current. And you have two different ways of current, which Edison and Tesla showed us. Direct, and you have alternating. What is alternating? Why is it so much more efficient and more powerful? Because there's communication going on. Two heads are better than one. Well, two heads of what? Two decisions being made. You have intuition, and then you have the timekeeper, which is the mind, and the way in which it decides how, like, the amps, the what's it called, the watt, not wattage, but anyway, the way it comes out. And if it's just direct current, like Edison and we showed that we manifested as a collective, as a society, the direct current to be used and call it General Electric, because guess what? We're not alternating the current between the creators. And as long as we ignore the intuition, the passion, the compassion, the love, and what I mean by ignore it is be dependent upon somebody else. This is what the whole twin flame journey is about. It is that moment to which two are in the place of being ready subconsciously. Uh, Ready comes after it's all done. That's in hindsight. Willing is a whole different story. And this is why people talk about that path being so, an honor and cultivated, and it's rare and all this stuff. And yeah, it's it's indescribable, because, and here's the biggest difference, and one of the things that, you know on the other side, for anybody with that, everybody's empathetic, by the way. I mean, that's just being able to feel emotion, and being codependent. You're essentially, you're not, everybody's empathetic, but you're not empathetic. You're not feeling others' emotion. You're just being impacted and stirred up, like your pendulum is being messed with. And instead of it being the balance is not balance that we think it is, to say, oh, staying in comfort zones. That's not balancing. You're descending. You're like, that's what all of the, or genres and movies, and Edison came out and made motion pictures to make the stories on a two-dimensional aspect, to create the entertainment for the mind, to say, for stimulus in infinite different ways, to say, listen, this is the road you're going in, because in your underworld, in the darkness, this is what's going on that you don't see. This is the antonym that is happening. And at the end of the day, if you keep demonstrating the the lack of willingness to feel a tolerance for your own pain, which means accountability, which means awareness, which means owning it, and cultivating what true responsibility is beyond the reaction, because the mind that takes over the body and then just reacts as the one creator deciding for all in the interpretation of something it cannot interpret. Literally, this is the linearity in which we think we're moving forward, but we're actually going backwards. because all we're doing is spinning around the same stories. So is everything happening now at once? Yes, of course it is. Same stories. Is there a second coming? Yes. You're living it right now. You're living in it because the Christ is the name of the Christos oil that secretes the sacred secretion. The Buddha is another. It's like general of an army. It's a status of energy awareness, of ability, just like magician or alchemist or all this stuff. Um, it's all it's all always looking to balance itself because it's not looking to balance itself. The one itself is is just not in alignment with, to whatever degree to another, with with balance itself, with the oneness. So to one degree or another, we are in that 12. We have 12 steps. That's why 11 is the master number. 22 is the master builder. 2, I mean, the numbers give themselves away. In, out. 33 is the 33 vertebrae. You've now traveled the back, behind your underworld. And all of these things have a coinciding demonstration physically. And a lot of people, I mean, if you open your mind wide, far enough, you can get to, I mean, there's all kinds of Marvel superheroes that show you what's possible. But that has to get outside of the mind. The mind can't control that because the creation of light it's malleable. It's not fixed. And that information itself, you don't need to be anything other than a kid to understand that if something is not fixed, then it's in motion. And if it's not in motion, and if it's in motion or in a position where it's pulp. That's what the whole movie about Pulp Fiction was about. But it's still out the back of his neck where his pineal is, the gold, because the light, the white light, the artificial light, the way that we light up our inside structures, schools, all that artificial light and the education that is only there supposed to teach us how to learn, not to teach us how to become more and more mindless. Mindless, we call it, but it's actually that is supposed to point us towards understanding we need to use our mind less. That's the antonym. So when we say somebody is mindless, we are completely in ironically and anagrammically, paradoxically defining its exact opposite. So when we say that, the words that come out are the exact opposite of what we are meaning. They are mindful, right? And they are not open, they're closed. The mind is full of, all time is condensed within a mind that's full of time, full of history, full of the energy that is completely a capacity and being used up, all for to be attached to the past and traditions and to repeat, recycle, to release. I mean, all the things we are saying are exactly what keeps us. I mean, that's the map. You just got to listen to the words you're saying and then be open to know that you don't know where it's going to take you. Oh, that was kind of long, so let's get back to this. All right, 5G. Okay, so fiber, the optic network, right? So this actually came from Angel Publishing, which I ended up opening a Fidelity account off of this. But anyway, so 5G, the M waves, they can't travel very far. The 5G M waves. Now we're going into an auric or toroidal expression here, or illustration, interpretation here. So 1,500 feet they've traveled. But what happens with 5G waves? They're faster. They travel in shorter waves, and they go up and down, vibrate faster, and they cannot travel through. Okay, what is that? So 4G here. So let's look at this: 5G, 4G, 3G. Okay, three third 3D, and each of the letters have their own symbol to also express exactly the illustration of what we are experiencing in the demonstration in a two-dimensional way to help us understand the three-dimension. The instruction book is literally our alphabet. So when we look at and the numbers, okay, it's sacred geometry. There's only 5 platonic solids. I didn't study sacred geometry. I didn't study any of this shit. Astronomy, none of it. In fact, one of the first things that I was told to do, and repeatedly, well, suggested to do, was to stay off of YouTube and stay out of the circles of communities, because the direct line, I will have a direct line to the divine. Well, that has, that is essentially, I can see how I should, that is our equality. That is not a, the only thing is, and when people talk about time travel, okay, timelines, all of that stuff, this is what is being talked about. The the calculus, it's a very calculable, easy to read aspect on, because I can now see it in everybody where they're at, and you know, getting better at knowing where to stop and everything, because that is introducing the communication of it. The multiverse is what they're, everything's talking about. And yes, it gets a lot bigger than this, but if you don't understand it at the basic foundational fundamental level, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be scared shitless, and then you're going to scare everybody else, or they scare you, and you're going to participate voluntarily in all the fear-based driven stuff, because you're not going to know, all because you are only focused on the macro from the mind, in regards to the macro amount of energy that will be released within you from the suffering. So this is why little bite-sized digestible things, such as celebrating, like I started with my pillow, celebrate the fact that, some of the things I would use is, like I had bad, these brutal, like wisdom teeth, and I still have them in, by the way. So I'd have these bad toothaches, or just, and I remember being like, sick. I couldn't stand being sick. So if I needed to, that's all. I mean, and I was in a place where I was rapidly descending. I would just, find that appreciation that right now, good, okay. And it's just for a moment, like, and what I'm doing is I'm comparing the old process in which my mind would take me through when I was in complete disorder, depression, and despair, and all of that stuff, epic addictions. So I'm just comparing, right now with with what I know now to the way that I processed things, before, when everything got to its, came to heal. The the thing that I always would be stuck on is, how could, like, what's the point of feeling like any appreciation right now for not being sick, when I can't see any, it's just going to happen again right after that, and then something's going to happen later, and then tomorrow, and it's just all going to keep on repeating. That is the exact thing that makes it repeat. And then the other thing that happens is, throughout history, we have a infinite number of case studies to call upon, in which people have gone through this, and at the end of that road, either are burned at the stake, crucified, and there's no seeming end to man's cruelty to man, or what we will do to our loved ones and everything, at the end of the day, when it comes down to fear, and fearing our own energy that's stored and in suffering. So that's the whole point. That's the significance of getting to this place, and doing what I've done. I assure you don't want to have gone through that. So this is the importance of now sharing, and then getting to a place of, it does happen. And I mean, all that fear was always, was always present. But that's what we alchemize. It's energy. It's just an impact to show us where we're at. And you will eventually get to the place of understanding all of the things that are just now cliche. And they're cliche because they're true. It's just a matter of figuring out it's what we keep resonance with, and it helps us to light the way down to the path, or come back to the path when we stray too far. There's all these cliches and Bible stories and all this stuff. But at the same time, the it never looks like there's an end, a light at the end of the tunnel, because the mind has never experienced or known the light at the end of the tunnel. And that is the catalyst. No matter, it's relentless. And this is true faith. This is true trust. This is true respect. And this is true love for self. Love does not come to be experienced and described in peacetime. It's just axiomatic and experience. It's the experience. And then what will happen in love, it's talked about a lot of, the love is talked about a lot, just like we talk about hate and war and rage and all of this stuff all the time, because that is what's focused upon. I mean, when we talk about love and the positive polarity of things, we don't we don't know what that is. And I assure you when I say we don't, because I've never seen anybody or experienced anybody that has gotten to this place, and I'm still not even there. And that may be a wild claim or whatever, but that in itself was one of my biggest problems. Was I thought humble was to be quiet. No, when you get to a place of great power and significance, it comes with great responsibility, meaning now I've cultivated the ability to respond to a place where I control my energy. And in that humility, in that expression, in that demonstration of it, I no longer illustrate a two-dimensional, some kind of vibe that is not authentic. It's authentic because it's humble. And humility is taught by humiliation. I mean, it's all pretty simple and basic and straightforward. The only difference is the 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 density, the thickness, the emotional weight, the gravity of the veil in which is between how thick is your skull, how thick is the barrier between your mind opening in that Pandora's box, and opening to your heart, your north, on the inside. Has nothing to do with the outside. Zero. And one of the biggest things that people, it's this or that. So when we talk about relationships, or I went through this with myself. I have twin flames, 16 years, all of the stuff, even my kids, all of it, mother, brother. Yes, I had to get to the other side of a very, very, very long and relentless, seemingly never ending. But here's what happened: in the celebrations of the little moments I had done prior, began to recalibrate, reconnect, to the moments that I needed them the most, to just take another step, to just take another breath. And to just take another breath happened 47 times, which I didn't know until I was shared with that. But yeah, 47 times I was at the moment of, no return, and to breathe back in again. So yeah, it wasn't pleasant, but at the same time, that's the biggest thing, and the reason why it's important for us to share the things that we have gotten to openly, honestly, in a format of question, of listening. I'll share my story and the mystery, and I'm going to listen to. There's not anything I can't learn or you can't learn in any given moment, which is exactly what every moment is promised, to be able to learn how to better communicate with the energetic aspect of creation, which just means that we are becoming more aware, more conscious, more synergistic, and more ability to co-create, more warranty, more. I mean, that's true power. That's true the true knowledge, the true knowing is getting into that into that creator mode, and you get to a place where you are your own home. And this does not how it seemingly looks, because like the mind will do, it'll trigger the recipe or the culmination of all the different ways it feels the opposite of what we know it to be in a certain way when we feel like we're being loved or listened to. It's not that way. It's an enhancement of all of that, because it's greater energy, greater synergy, greater speed, greater freedom, free from dome, free from the mind. So okay, I'll cut that off there and go back to this real quick. Okay, so 5G. This is, and showing this is another way to kind of help with the way we point ourselves towards fear, and how it's all just a reflection of what we're doing, and the only thing standing in our way is ourselves. And from this point, when I wrote this and went through this to now, there's an entire world that's already built underneath everybody's feet. So when you say, oh, the data that came out today, or is like TikTok, all this stuff, right? The data mining. What is data? Data is the mind's primary function, right? And there's no such thing as intellectual property. You don't own your thoughts. Nobody does. In fact, your thoughts are being put in there, if you want to say it that way. Make the distinction or the discernment, the separation, to become aware of it. Then name it so that you can go back into it with a coherency, with a to know what you're doing, to comprehend the direction and trajectory you're going in. And at this point, it like society, especially American society, is like giving them, and that's where all the gun stuff is coming in. There's no responsibility, because it's like, this is exactly what we're doing with our energy. We're firing out our words, which are the bullets that you one day become able to dodge bullets, and you just say no. No is a complete sentence. That's the whole first layer depiction or reason that Neo does that in the hallway. Because now you can say no to the words not that are in your matrix, that are in your mind. You're not escaping it. You're learning how to create within it, which is an entirely different perspective in it. And prior to that, it's an opinion. And so anyway, so the feminine, 5G, the ethereal, the spirit cannot get through to your voice, to use the voice, to be allowed out the gates of the door, to speak with compassion, to forgive yourself by forgiving everybody else, to be in a position where it's not about speaking the negative emotions that the mind is trying to paradoxically avoid and is creating, because when it speaks in two different languages. It speaks in a negative and a positive, a masculine and the definition and its opposite. But it does not, it speaks out from the darkness, it turns itself around, and then creates light, the artificial light, projecting it the opposite, the reflection. So, like when I was mentioning mindless, okay, we say mindless, where we have a moniker of mankind, right? Our moniker is man, because kind is where we're going. Even the way that two words are formed together, is path, is spelling, is magic, is creation. Just follow the yellow brick road, and that's the significance behind the Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy goes to the land of Oz and has four directions that are a cross, right? Crossroads. And once you come upon that, I took the road less traveled, and that made all the difference. So she said, start here. She spirals around, and then she goes out of the city and into the woods, into the dangers. which is whether the man, the masculine, the hunting and gathering. This is where the instinct, right? It's not just instinct. It's spiritual law. It's universal law. The spirit, we call it spirituality or spiritual, or because again, it's expressing its reflection. The thing that we are not doing is allowing our spirit to speak. And in essence, like one of the things when I first started watching channeling, I wondered why they always close their eyes and everything. And I always had this like just weird feeling or sense that someday I was going to be able to do that, but I wouldn't be closing my eyes for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't know, but that was one of the many things that I just kind of stuck in my hat and waited to find out. Because we are one. We are the heart. The heart is broken between the mind and the body. Because when the mind doesn't learn a new thing, the heart is split in unconditional love because it's going to keep beating until it can't anymore. The body is one in pain that suffers all the now impact of all the suppression that the mind is controlling by not expressing honestly, by not following and getting familiar and opening the line of communication with the intuition, the creativity, because of the judgment. Okay, but who's doing the judge? Who's doing the judgment? Who's doing the dictation at the gate as to whether or not we're going to let our energy out, our feelings, do what we want, follow our passions, play music today or not, or go to work and repeat the same thing in the external responsibility that is what people call illusion, but it's the illustration, it's the projection to which we then choose to demonstrate and then follow through. And in that demonstration is where we create a, in that moment, we are creating the future, okay? That's when we're creating our future in the moment of right now. So the future things like what we're experiencing right now was already created in the demonstration of our ability to understand, communicate, and learn from our experience, our teacher, our feelings, and allowing or disallowing, and when to do so, the pattern recognition, when to discern, and when to express, and what feelings to express or not. And I will tell you right now, if somebody is not a coherent crier, they do not have an open mind. They may open it once in a while when they have the emotional, but traumatic events happen to these people near the death experiences for this reason. Because not because not because the capacity, but because they have the capacity to come back. Now, in my case, I was both. I was at capacity and had the capacity to come back. So that is, again, a timeline, a storyline. And one of the hardest things for me to do was to start to accept some of the things that I didn't want to. And I didn't want to because of what I knew the implications of, you know, people go back and talk about, or try to get their past lives and figure this past life stuff out. And there's something that just never resonated with me about that. And then trying to put a name on it. And I now know why, but at the same time, I also know who I am. And knowing who I am is the very caliber necessary to do what comes next. And what that is something that we are all in together. Like I can't stress that enough. Everybody is in this thing together, and there's only two directions to go. We can continue to do the same old things and ignore the the world being built right under our feet, which I have an affinity for the people that have had to go through the the stuff, the ancestral curse, the ancestors. I have a lot of respect for every step that has been taken. And in my choice, it's not to just kind of go on to that and, what people would say is go on your own journey or go on your own path, this and that. Because if I did or was going to do that, then I wouldn't be here anymore. So, anyway, all right. So the spirit can't travel through the travel through things. So it's exactly depicting the aspect that we're not allowing our spirit to come through. And this is the exact thing that is going on in the rustling up of the 5G, and it's causing cancer and all this stuff. Circumstances and consumption are 100% as relevant and meaningless as life is until we give it that meaning. We are the placebo. You know, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I never read his book. All I needed to see was that title. So I didn't judge the title by a cover. I discerned. And I didn't need to know in all the different ways and words he was going to put it together to understand what he was saying, that we are the placebo. Circumstances and consumption are irrelevant. Only a necessary stage in which that consumption needs to be purified or cleaned out or flow through. It cannot be hoarded. And then the circumstances in the same way is just the exact same thing happening with the fifth dimension or the non-physical or the spirit, the Holy Ghost, all of that. Okay, so let's see. So tiny antennas. This is talking about again going the infrastructure. The infrastructure is already in place. Okay, so no building, which means that your body, your mind, your entire structure is already in place. And this is what was let's say subconsciously or spirit was talking to me, like however you want to put it together. That's what was going on when I was writing this. And this was oh my gosh, I think this was 5 years ago almost. Wow. 5 years ago, probably to the day. Wow. Okay. So 5 years, five balance. Balance is one of the main things of the few. I think it was five pieces of direction that I was given, and balance was the main one to focus towards. Which $50, 50, all of this stuff is like pointing towards the same direction. Once you start getting close to the core and the center, it just speeds up to see how much more is all saying the exact same thing. So again, we have has infrastructure in place, no building, plug and play. So just plug into your intuition and start going. Whatever it tells you to do, just follow it until you can't take it anymore. Until you get overwhelmed, and then take a moment and relax, butterfly. That's what they kept telling me. Relax, butterfly. All right, so smart cities, 5G smart cities. Okay, there's the tale of two cities. It's the best of times, the worst of times. Guess what we're in? The script is here. It's being played out, and I'm here to tell you there's nothing to fear once you decide that you're going to go through the fear, because that's the alchemization of the courage. That is the turning of the tables. That is the pull shift that you must do within yourself. Now you will be tested. You will get to a place, and if the fear comes up, it will be you to be the one that creates the damage. Which I got many stories in which that almost came to some serious damage. But anyway, okay, so telecommunication, telepathy, telekinesis. So 2 billion to 379 billion. And I'm going to close with this. So Angel Publishing, creating through the act of angles to create the box. Okay, so the fourth dimension is the cube, in which the meeting happens in the eighth octave between the lower mind and the higher mind. And that is where the observer's perspective is. And then from that observer's perspective, you can decide how you're going to lay out the awareness for the things that are being suppressed and allow the energy to flow through. So, kind of lost my train of thought. But at the bottom there it is. Okay, and we will pay the toll to use the corpse. The toll that we are paying or have to pay is everything I just discussed. Because when that's going through hell, this is the penance is already paid. The energy is already stored. It's all saved. All you got to do is let it go. It wants to go home. Put it in the hole, baby. Send it home. Which means you just have to feel. Your mind has to get out of the way. You have to trust your feminine. You have to trust your heart. You have to lead with it. You have to. The only boundaries you need to set, and doing so any other way is more spinning than and in the old way of distraction, which is an entirely different perspective or framework in which it's an entirely different labyrinth or matrix, but it looks exactly the same. Which means that you individually have to be in a position where you're willing to allow the what we the corporation you are right now, the body that is just a straw man for the mind right now, to open it up. You have to open your mind and have to do it in a baby stepped succession, black white, in the light, in the dark. Don't fear your and that's not right either. Don't say don't fear or ego death or all of this. It's a communication. So yes, fear. Just learn how to slowly to control burn in the fear. Okay, and each little session if it's getting overwhelming, that means you need to pay more attention with between the times in which you are sitting down to focus on going into your own and inner world and having the communication, which people call meditation. If meditation doesn't start with just learning how to not judge yourself or use the emotional attachments, for instance, like I just laid down and when my mind would stray, oop, I caught it straying. Celebrate. Do I want to focus on something? Okay, well, let's focus here. And with that intent, did I stray from that focus? Okay, celebrate. It's not about the focus, it's not about the circumstance, it's not about the consumption, it's not about the thought. You don't own your thoughts. Can't stress that enough. You do not own them. Just saw Mel Gibson being on Joe Rogan's show, podcast, and he was talking about, actually, they were talking about the shawl of Christ, and they brought it up, and whatever Mel Gibson is doing now, he's trying to create a film that is talking about whatever, or trying to ask the question and prove or show that nobody dies for a lie. Now, the conversation that I would have with William Wallace, which Mel Gibson's always been a great favorite of mine, but what I would have the conversation with, or how I would respond to that is, that's not true to a sense. They died for the truth, but it was because of the two lies on two sides. So it's a transition, because two sides, two lies, the truth is in the middle. Why is the truth in the middle? Because if it were not, then you would be a nothingness, a whole lot of nothing, because you can't see or feel anything other than what is already infinite and constant. Therefore, there's no motion, there's no there's no impact. So nobody dies for a lie. At the same time, the only reason that there's any funeral, death, or heartache, or mourning, in the wake of a death is because of who's left behind. All the Egyptian for the afterlife, all this stuff they put on, all that's just reminders of what we need to do here, or what we would eventually need to do, because that doesn't happen too well. I won't go into that. Anyway, okay, I'll stop here. Love you.